So, what makes a great story? You need to know your purpose. You need to know who your audience is and what your story is trying to say, convey, or sell. Even for somebody to be inspired by you, they need to hear and like and connect to your story. And this is a skill that you may be missing and you don't know. And that could be the reason why you're not so great at your business or on social media. If you never thought about this from the perspective of an entrepreneur, make sure that you do have your story straightened out and you do practice telling your story of why X, Y, and Z happened to you.
Hi, I'm Yegi. I'm an entrepreneur and success coach who wants it all. Family, luxury, career, and the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I created the Yegi Project to document my journey and inspire others to do the same. My mission is to change the world by influencing and leading others to do what they love and live fulfilled lives.
Hello. Welcome back to the Yegi Project. Today we're going to talk about storytelling. Recently, I realized that some people are naturally good at storytelling, but others need to put in some work in order to be better storytellers. Humans are wired for stories. We want to know and we want to consume information when it comes from a story that we can connect to emotionally. For this reason, everybody can benefit from being better storytellers. This episode is to encourage you and teach you more about storytelling skills that could benefit your business and your personal life. So what is storytelling anyways? So the way storytelling works is instead of you just sharing factual information, you are using a story to connect with the person emotionally and make them feel something so they can remember what you're talking about. So in order to be a good storyteller, there is some objectives and we will jump into that shortly. But basically, a good storyteller is somebody who can connect with its audience and keep them engaged and wanting to hear more while giving them the information that they're trying to relay. A good storyteller will actually take you on a journey and make you feel like you were part of that event that you're talking about. So this is a skill. We can practice and be better storytellers in order to get people to engage with us, to be more entertained, and to also hear what we're saying. If people don't want to hear about anything that we're talking about, we're not going to be able to be a good friend, a good entrepreneur, or even just a good leader. Did you guys know that the building blocks of a story is its characters, conflict, the solution, or what happened with that conflict, and also the emotions that we go through when we're listening to a story? I've heard one time from a fellow educator that a good movie takes you through all the emotions. It makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you feel angry, frustrated, all of that. If a good movie can get you to go through all the emotions, that's when you know it's a great film. Now, that could be subjective, but it is a key point into storytelling. And if you want to connect with your audience and if you want to connect with your customers, you want to work on your storytelling techniques. Even for somebody to be inspired by you, they need to hear and like and connect to your story. And this is a skill that you may be missing and you don't know. And that could be the reason why you're not so great at your business or on social media, for example. So let's really dive deep and see how we can work on our storytelling techniques. There are different forms of storytelling: movies, films, digital, written, blogs, even social media is a form of storytelling. Did you know that a really good story makes people initially care about you, remember you, and then take action on about what you're talking about or what you're selling even? So if you never thought about this from the perspective of an entrepreneur, make sure that you do have your story straightened out and you do practice telling your story of why X, Y, and Z happened to you and how you overcame it. So if you've never thought about it or even ever practiced telling your story, you may want to start by writing down what your story is, what you went through, what problems you solved, how you overcame the issue, what helped you overcome it. And this is what's really going to start clarifying and defining and making your story short and concise. So even if somebody wants to ask you a 2-minute elevator pitch of your story where they can connect with you, let's say that could be your hook on social media for them to subscribe. That could be your intro on your podcast for people to be able to actually continue listening to what you have to say. You really want to work on your story and your storytelling. Be authentic. Talk about who you really are, what you really went through, and how you really care about that subject, that business, or whatever else your purpose or your business is. So what makes a great story? Is there an outline? To start off with, you need to know your purpose. You need to know who your audience is and what your story is trying to say, convey, or sell. If that's not clear to start off with, your story can be all over the place and you can jump from one part of your life to another part and whatever you're trying to share. But if you know your purpose and you know what the audience wants to learn, feel, or even do from the story that you're telling, then it is going to be a lot easier to connect with them and have them take action. We also talked about audience. So you want to know who your audience are. Who would be your ideal customer, for example, or who would be your ideal person you want to service or help that's listening to your story? How can you connect with them? What do they care about? What are their values, right? What is their preferences in certain things? Can you find anything about your audience that you can relate to so you can connect with them through that story? For example, if you are selling something that's for moms, what do moms usually do and feel on the regular? That's how you can connect with them when you're telling your story. Now, knowing your audience and understanding them could be a whole other project and a whole other topic to talk about. But you do really want to sit down and figure out who your audience is and how do they act. And there's a lot of analytics with the help of Google and other tools that you can use in order to also know your audience if you do have an online website, any sort of platform that's being tracked in order to see the behavior of your audience. Next, we want to structure our framework for our story. First, we want to have an introduction or an opening. So we want to introduce the characters that are going to be in the story. So it could even just be you or whoever else is going to be introduced in the story you want to tell. Next, you want to have a clear problem, and then you want to have a clear solution. So of course, those are like the three main acts of a good, compelling story. You want to be clear on who the people are, where the setting is, and what the problem is, and then what the solution is, to keep it very simple. In the problem area of the storytelling, you really want to go deep. You want to connect with your audience that these are things that they may be going through as well. So the twists and the turns and the emotional ups and downs, the breakdowns, the financial struggles, anything that your audience could be feeling as far as what they're struggling with, you do want to take your time and really build on that in order to connect with them. Then your solution part of the story really wants to give your audience hope that if they are going through what you are going through, or if they have those problems that you had, there is hope. They can find a solution, and you did it so they can do it too. That's kind of how I would approach it. And I personally like to end a story or whatever I'm talking about with something inspirational to kind of leave the person in a happy mood when I'm done talking to them. But if you are to pay attention to the stories that you tell, the conversations that you have, you'll be able to work on how you want to kind of lead that story and where you want to leave your listeners at the end. So do you want to leave them inspired? Do you want to leave them wanting to know more? What is kind of your closing conclusion and the purpose of you telling the story? Like I said, for me personally, I want to leave them inspired to really connect with me and hopefully take action for them to also change and live their lives as lavishly and as happy as possible, right? So that's my purpose. I want to live my life as fully and as happily as possible, and I want other people to do the same. So at the end of my story or anything that I talk about, that's kind of how I try to conclude it. Couple things to also keep in mind. The best stories don't have perfect characters. The best stories have realistic characters that have flaws and that go go through transformations. Also, if you can, with the tone of your voice, with your body language, if it's a video or if it's somebody in front of you, you want to make sure that you're going through the journey. So if you were sad, your voice should change. If you were excited, your pitch should change. And you really want to use your speech and your body language in order to also tell a great story that people can be engaged and want to listen to. If you're monotone and you don't even stand up straight when you're talking about it, or you don't seem excited to tell the story, nobody's going to want to listen to that story. Also, don't forget about the tension, those pauses, those things that make people gasp and want to say, okay, so what happened next? It is a great tool to use tension, and you can do that by using pauses or any other technique. To conclude, you do want to be authentic, but you want to know structure of a storytelling, and you want to practice storytelling in order to connect with your audience, work on your sales pitch, and also tell your story for the world to hear and be inspired by. Lastly, the first time you write or even practice saying your story, it's going to be all over the place. And I had to actually tell my story so many times until it just became short, concise, and very engaging. And this happens with practice. It happens with you telling the people that you care about and them giving you feedback. It happens you practicing in front of a mirror. It happens by you writing it down, taking stuff out that don't really matter. And of course, like I said, rewriting, revising, and re-practicing and retelling your story is really going to make it perfect or as good as possible at the end of it. So make sure you put in the work. Just because you've lived through it, it doesn't mean that you can tell the story how people want to hear it. And it may be simple, but I don't think people put a lot of thought into this. And it could be a great tool for you to grow your business and grow yourself as a person if you could tell your story. And even at networking events, even at meeting new people, even in dating, all of the storytelling techniques can really help you in life. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And please let me know in the comments below, have you ever practiced telling your story? Or did you put much thought into it? Does it happen organically? Did you have to sit down and actually think about it and practice it? And where are you with your journey? I would really like to know. Well, until next time, bye.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and review this podcast. Follow and engage with us on social media under the Yegi Project. And if you're interested in being a guest, email info@theyegiproject.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.